Hi, this is Dr. Vibhuti Venkateshwarlu. Today I am going to discuss on the topic of democracy in land justice in globalization. So, democracy word derived from the Greek word democracy. Demo means people, cracy means rule. That means rule by the people. So, democracy means majorly people elect their kings, their leaders, and rule themselves. So, by the people, the government is formed and ruled themselves. So, in modern society, the democracy is differently discussed: direct democracy, indirect democracy. Direct democracy, like referendum, recall methods. Indirect democracy, that is representative democracy, they are electing, the representatives are electing by the people and rule themselves. Representatives elected by the people, they work, they express their voice on behalf of the people. They reflect, the representatives reflect in the houses the voice of the people. That is called indirect democracy. That is also representative democracy. In the modern era, in the 21st century, adopted this kind of method of representative democracy. Almost all countries in the world are adopted representative democracy. As per the Abraham Lincoln, democracy means of the people, by the people, for the people. So he defined the democracy means the government, elected government of the people, by the people, for the people. So it means the elected government elected by the people, and they have to work for the people and also fought for the people. So it means the government, elected government, is nothing but a people's government. They work, it is part of the people, they reflects the intentions of the people in the houses, they make the policies for the people, they fight for the safety, security of the people, for the welfare of the people. So the governments always look welfare of the people, they elected by the people and they work for the people, as per the Abraham Lincoln. Coming to the general meaning of the democracy, the government especially ruled by the majority people, especially the government is ruled by the majority of the people. That is general meaning of the democracy. Democracy means a majority people, the majority's people opinion is established or form a government. That is, the majority is acquired through the voting system. In recent modern governments established or formed through the elections. So the elections are conducted by the separate independent agencies. So by voting the citizens, democracy means the opinion of the majority prevails. So opinion taken from the people through the voting. So the voting right is given to the citizens to cast their vote for elections, to elect their representatives, election constituencies. So the representatives are elected by the people, their opinion is prevails. So collectively the majority of the people's opinion is prevails. That is the majority acquired through the votes of the people, and the governments forms majority opinions of the people. Accordingly the government is formed by the majority opinion of the people. That is the democracy. And so most of the countries adopted ballot system, ballot boxes as well as ballot papers. Citizen, the voter, can choose his representatives in a secret manner in the ballot paper, and so later it counting by the officers and declares that this person is getting majority through the votes, the majority people opinion reflected through the ballot paper. This is a methodology was used. Recently, due to information technology, the voting ballot system is changed, replaced, and introduced electronic voting machines, which are also called internet voting machines. So, several countries, advanced countries, developing countries, and also underdeveloped countries also adopted this electronic voting machines. So, whether the electronic voting machines replaced ballot paper system is protecting, the electronic voting machines are really free, fair, and transparent, and these are all working. Free elections, fair elections, and transparent elections are a questions. The electronic voting machines are cost reducing, speedy results. It is also improves effective and accuracy in voting system. But whether it is transparent, untamperable, or questions. So coming with these questions, there are several countries banned electronic voting machines, and several countries are fighting to ban the electronic machines. Several NGOs, civil societies are fighting against electronic machines to stop electronic machines and replace electronic machines and go back to the paper ballot procedure. So Carl Dishart, he wrote a book on nerves of the government. So in this book he told that in the modern time they adopted technology to cast vote of the citizens. So these utilizing technology for service delivery and communication, and also to cast and elect their representatives by adopting internet technology. So this is called e-democracy as per the Carl Dishart. He opined that e-democracy means transactions between the citizens and governments by delivering service, communication, and also electing the governments, electing the representatives through the internet technology is effective and speedy results. More than 20 countries adopted EVM machines in the world. So developed countries, USA, UK, Netherlands, Germany, France, Ireland, Australia, Norway, Belgium, Venezuela, and United Arab Emirates adopted electronic voting machines. And developing countries like India, Nepal, Bhutan, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Malaysia, Maldives, and also countries like Kenya, Jordan, South Africa, Egypt also adopted electronic voting machines. These are all in pilot projects. They are initial stage in some countries, say they are advanced stage in some countries. However, so India is supplying electronic voting machines to the several countries. That is, India supplying EVM machines to Africa, Nepal, Bhutan, Kenya, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Malaysia, Namibia. These countries are importing electronic voting machines from India and conducting elections in their countries. So, however, these electronic voting machines are fair and untamperable to conduct free and fair elections without any bias, without any manipulation. There are some fighting agitations from the civil society as well as opposite parties, etc. So several countries banned and they went back to the paper ballot system while conducting elections to conduct elections to elect the representatives for governance. So most of the countries struck down or rejected electronic voting machines, and they are going back conducting ballot back system. On par with the civil society and opposite parties and against to the electronic voting machines or EVMs or internet voting machines, several jurists or several authors wrote books on against electronic voting machines, in which Robert Cremor is he opposed in his book Electronic Voting Machines, and they conducted first international conference on electronic voting machines, and those international conference papers published in the edited book in the name of electronic voting machines. The entire gist of the book is these electronic voting machines are not trustworthy, they are tamperable, there is no trust on the electronic voting system. Again, in another conference, international voting conference held in Austria, third giant international conference in Austria on electronic voting machines in the name of auditing Indian electronic voting machines. There is a topic by the Vishal Mohanty, paper on auditing of Indian electronic voting machines, published in international conference edited book. According to his paper, he against the electronic voting machines. These are all tamperable. There is no trustworthiness on the electronic voting machines. Coming to the John Horton Levitt, the voting trust, a device for corporal control. So the electronic voting machines are basically on a devices on corporate control. So these electronic voting machines are nothing but a corporate control. Robert Kersting, Democracy, a comparative analysis. In this book, internet devices, that is electronic voting machines, are giving different results. They are all tamperable. There is no trustworthiness on the electronic voting machines. So that these electronic voting machines are mockery. So immediately these electronic machines must be rejected, according to Norbert Kersting and other writers published a book in Richard Celeste. He wrote a book on asking the right questions about electronic voting machines, which was published in National Academic Press, Washington, D.C. According to this book, electronic voting system cannot simply replace existing ballot paper without making awareness in the people, without training the electoral officers, election officers, and other poll workers, etc., without awareness in the civil society, with the citizens about the technology as well as steps involved in the electronic voting machines. Without training, without awareness, it is a bad thing, it is a mockery. Another jurist, Bev Harris, he explained in his book Black Box Voting Ballot Tampering in the 21st Century, Security and Transparency. So his book is Black Box Voting Ballot Tampering in the 21st Century, so which was published in Blackstone. According to this book, can we trust these machines, these electronic machines, these electronic voting machines? He started criticizing with the question of, can we trust these voting machines? So the majority of people are not trust on the electronic voting machines, according to Bev Harris. Another important jurist, politician, political philosopher explained about William E. Switchman, Frankfurt School of Perspectives on Globalization, Democracy, and the Law. In his book, he explained that in the globalization era, these electronic voting machines, newly introduced by replacing ballot bags, paper ballot system, etc., these are all not trustworthy, which are creating doubts, huge doubts among the civil society as well as among the citizens. So they are not trust. These missions are not trustworthy. These are all always tamperable, always in the doubtful. So these are all not protect good democracy. It is not giving confidence over the people and their vote value and voting system. Several advanced countries banned their electronic voting missions and they conducting elections through ballot paper, ballot box system. So advanced countries, they rejected electronic voting missions and they went for ballot papers. And several countries fighting against removal of electronic voting missions. And several countries, some of the few countries, they using electronic voting missions with paper trail missions. So the electronic missions as well as paper trail missions are using for conducting elections. Very few countries. So in their country also, in that country also, there are several agitations against removal of these electronic voting missions. However, several countries rejected these electronic voting missions and went for ballot papers. So US rejected electronic voting missions and they are adopted ballot paper system. Germany declared EVMs are unconstitutional because average citizens could not expect to understand steps involved in the recording and tallying their votes. So people are not aware, they are not educated, not know the technology, not know the technical aspects involved in the electronic voting missions, by which German Supreme Court rejected electronic voting missions. And in the year 2006, Netherlands banned EVMs. 2006, Ireland also rejected electronic voting missions. In America, majority of states rejected electronic voting missions and they are conducting their elections in ballot box, ballot paper. This is the overall scenario about the electronic voting missions. Several countries banned, also rejected EVM electronic voting missions and they are conducting their elections through the ballot paper and ballot box system. So next I will make a video on electronic voting missions in India and also the present status of electronic voting missions and in the view of NGOs and civil society, whether they are Indian electronic voting missions or reject or continue with the electronic voting missions. There is a trust or there is a faith on the electronic voting missions in India. I will thank you for listening. Please subscribe by pressing bell icon.